Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats at chess.com. I'm here to continue my video series on the team match between my video lessons group and CARPE DIEM. This is a pretty big match, 210 boards, and this was from board 210, the last one, and our member Big Danny T outranked our opponent by about 1550 to 1150. So it wasn't necessarily a fair match, and the games did end kind of quickly. We'll hopefully learn something from going over these games. Actually, we could learn quite a bit. And White is making a blunder in this game, and will lose quickly, but we'll examine it as we go. Okay, so now this is the Queen's Gambit. Now, Black, the main lines, Black can take. That's the Queen's Gambit accepted, or he can decline with a Slav defense, or play e6 with a classical. Or there's other moves that Black can play here, and Black chooses one of them. Black counters White's Gambit with what we call the Alban counter gambit, named after a chess player named Alban, and it's a counter gambit because he's countering White's Gambit with a gambit of his own. I recommend this for new players. Being down a pawn is not going to matter much in the opening because you're getting your pieces developed. Look at this. Black has open lines for all of his pieces. His knights are coming out. Queen has an open line. He'll get castled. Everything should be terrific for Black here at the price of a pawn. But how does White win the pawn? For instance, if takes here, suddenly the Queen comes into play. This pawn is under pressure, and even if White stops to guard it, Black will just develop another piece, putting more pressure, and I think this turning into a Chigorin defense to the Queen's Gambit. And this bishop comes out here and gives a pin, and Black's getting a lot of active play here, and so this is kind of beyond the scope of what I'm trying to accomplish here. There's plenty of ways to play this, but Black gets a comfortable game. These openings aren't seen up at the higher levels, Grandmaster chess, because a Grandmaster will handle this opening much better and make Black pay for trying something risky. But we're not Grandmasters, so these openings are quite fine for all rating levels. Okay, down anything under Master, these openings are terrific. Okay, so let's see. Let me get it to the right point. E5. So which way does the way for White to accept this is to take the E pawn, because that is not the protected pawn. Okay, Black cannot take this pawn. Now, Black's strategy is to push D4, and essentially everything I've been saying is true here. Black has active lines for his diagonals for his bishops. His knights will come into play. Often this knight will go over to G6, and if need be, another piece will be used to attack that pawn and bring it home, and Black will eventually regain his gambit pawn. Also this pawn on D4 is taking C3 away from the White knight. And if White tries to get greedy and hold on to his pawn, he's creating all kinds of weaknesses on the king side. So I'm going to flip this over to White's perspective, get rid of the arrows, and I'm going to show you a trap that White can fall into. Again, if you're a new player and you're playing against another new player, it's very easy to actually see happen what I'm about to show you. A natural looking move that White might play here is E3. I mean, White looks at this and says, God, this is great. If he takes, I'll take his queen with check to stop him from castling. Then my bishop will take the pawn. I'm still a pawn ahead, and I've got a great game. But it doesn't have to work this way. So let's flip the board back over and show you what Black can do. Black has this very potent check. And now White innocently blocks the check with his bishop, and here comes the surprise. Pawn takes. Black is offering a piece. Now, White's got a messy game now. What he needs to do is take this pawn and he does have pawn weaknesses. He's a pawn up, but both of his e-pawns are weak. And the pawn on e5 will fall eventually, and the pawn on e3 will remain weak. So here's what happens. That's what he needs to do. But here's what happens if white accepts the offered piece. Black gives a check. Now white, to his horror, discovers if king takes that the queen is loose. So white happily puts his king up on e2, hopes for the best. And I show this to beginners. The first move they want to play is bishop check. They think they're winning the queen, but then they realize that this knight will interpose, block the check, and it's over. So, well, you got this pawn on the 7th rank, over for us. We're trying to win with black. We can go make a queen. Hey, that's great. We make a queen. He takes the queen, and then we check. But the problem with making a queen is that white stops and plays queen takes queen check, and after the king takes, the rook takes the new queen, and white laughs at us. So the trick is you're going to make a knight, because the knight's with check. Now, if rook takes, bishop g4 check wins on the spot. So white pretty much has no choice but to come back so he can protect his queen. Then comes queen h4 check, and now the king has to move because g3 runs into a thematic queen e4 check, picking up the rook. So the king has to come up to d2, and after a simple developing move with tempoing the bishop, black is having his way here. White can't take the rook or the knight because he'll lose the rook to queen f2 check, and this bishop is ready to develop with tempo, and then this rook will hop on over to the d file, probably with check or with tempo on the queen. All sorts of good things are going to happen here for black, and white's not long for this world. Well, anyway, what white did was played the correct move, knight f3, and now black plays knight c6. Now the main line, and I'm not going to discuss it, basically goes g3, and white will fianchetto this bishop, because as we just seen, there's some possible problems with e3. So I can only go on the evidence that I have in front of me and draw and my experience and draw some conclusions from them. And the fact that white now plays e3 and then the way black proceeds tells me that neither player was doing what's recommended in correspondence chess, is looking up the openings, because e3 is not the recommended move. G3 is. Now, when I was getting heavily involved in chess in the 60s, I was checking out books out of the library. And then when I got a little older, it was in my teens, I was buying them and building up a nice library. And I had all kinds of books to look at and review. And there's nothing better than a good chess book. Now today, they put all this stuff on databases. You can buy the program ChessBase and get millions of games. And if you don't have that, you just go to the website, Google, type in free online chess databases, and there's many of them. Some of them, all you have to do to use them is register an email, and then you can go through and just play through games to your heart's content and learn the openings, because correspondence chess is a way to learn the openings. You learn it, and you learn them when you count, because you're able to play them correctly and not have to spend 20 hours studying an opening line, then getting that line in a game and trying to remember it exactly. So e3 is not a good move, and black promptly plays the correct move, and now we get into something very similar to what we had before, but there's a big difference. The difference is the white knight is not on g1, it's on f3. So if black does the little pawn move, pawn takes e3, he will not be able to capture a knight on g1, promoting to knight with check. But the other difference is the bishop on b4 is now protected. So if two things. Number one, if white had the book, he would see that pawn takes is the correct move. And number two, if he took his time and analyzed this position, he might have discovered that pawn takes was the correct move. Because the way he plays it isn't the best way, and white didn't handle it in turn the best way. But the best way was to play pawn takes. Now, white has two choices. Accept the bad pawns now or accept them later. Okay, if white plays bishop takes, you're still going to do this, right? Then you're going to take, and then black regains his piece, and suddenly black is actually a pawn ahead. See this pawn on f2? That instead of being a pawn down, he's a pawn ahead. White has to stop and collect that just to get material equality. In the meantime, white can't castle. His pawn on e5 may come under pressure at some point. This knight can do what I was saying earlier. This knight comes back. Something else piles up on this pawn. It's a goner. Black is probably close to having a winning game here. So we didn't win like we did in the first example, but it's nonetheless a strong position for black. So white is basically left with nothing better than to take this pawn. And now what black should do is develop a piece. This bishop is protected. Just develop a piece. Because anytime white takes it, he's going to lose castling privileges. And suddenly black has a very good game here. Yeah, black's down a pawn, but those are the pawns. They're weak, okay? Black's got everything he wants from this opening. But as I said, white either didn't take the time to analyze, which is what you need to do when you play correspondence chess, or white didn't look it up. And I would say both, because black didn't look it up. Black didn't analyze. Black instead plays a weak move. Let me find it. So we reach this position, and instead of capturing the pawn on e3, black commits a mistake. Bishop takes. Now, this is wrong for several reasons. First off, we know that capturing on e3 was the correct choice. The next thing is this bishop was protected. It didn't need to be. It wasn't under threat. Okay. And also what this does is this develops a white piece. It's something I talk about in a lot of my videos. Don't make exchanges that develop or improve the position of your opponent's pieces. Allow him to do that for you. Let him get his pieces out on his own. So white takes correctly back with the queen. And now pawn takes. Now here, white misses a very good move. White blunders and takes with the pawn. Why? I don't know. But after queen takes e3, I believe white has a strategically winning game. Okay? White's got two pieces developed. Black has one. This pawn is pretty safe and secure right now. It's going to take black a little time to cover that. Now let's just play it out a few moves and see what happens. When I analyze, I make developing moves, because developing moves get pieces in play. Okay, so let's develop this. Let's get both sides ready to castle. Okay, now we're going to try to pile up on that pawn. We still only have two attackers on it. Let's develop another piece. Let's see. Now, what about rook here? Well, if anything, we can get rid of one of those attackers right now. Yeah, we gave up a bishop, but so what? Look at the development we get. Now we're tempoing the queen. Where's the queen going to go? Here? E7? Well, look at this. Knight d5. You know, black doesn't have a clear-cut path to prove he can equalize this position. White has the better game. And, you know, had black looked this up, black would have just known what to do. Or if black had done what I always say, analyze the position. World's champion Hans Berliner said at the top level you should take 3 hours a move. There was times when I was playing at the master class that'd take 30 hours a move. I would just keep looking and looking and looking. We played an old time control, 10 moves in 30 days. A little different than what you see online where you get 3 days every move. If I received a move in the mail at, say, 10 o'clock in the morning at my post office box, I could run home, look at it for 6 hours, and get it back to the post office in time to have it postmarked that same day, and I would be charged 0 days reflection time. Or if I wasn't sure what to do, I would just keep it and look, and I'd save up time for later when I'd need it. And I'd have maybe 1-2 days against me after 10 moves that I could afford to take 6, 7, 8 moves or days on a move. So anyway, back to the game. Basically, we've seen almost everything that needs to be seen because White quickly blunders this game away. He doesn't take with the queen as he should. He took with the bishop. And let's just go forward. This is a wasted move. Develop a piece, okay? Just play bishop e2. If white wants to take the knight, or black wants to take the knight, you're able to take back with the bishop, okay? So this goes into always develop pieces, okay? There's no need to kick this. Let black take on his own. Don't force him to take. Now black makes a threat and white misses it. And whoops, knight fork, game over. And I'll just kind of run through the moves just to make it official. And then we'll switch over to the other game they played. And that was the game. Okay, now we had one other game between the two. Let's bring it up. Okay. And we'll see what goes wrong here. Let me flip the board. Okay. All right. White chooses a slower line. I think they call it the pianamiso or something like the pianamiso, avoiding the main lines of the piano. Now there's pressure on f7, which black promptly ignores. How can black miss this threat? Okay. He does. Now, I think it's just perfectly acceptable. Just take it, but instead, white throws another attacker, and now he decides to take with the bishop with check. And here, white misses a very strong move, h3. Okay, h3 puts the question to this bishop. Where's it going to go? These squares are covered. This is the only safe one, back on h5. But now we make an exchange with tempo and give a check, and we're gonna pick up some material here, okay? Instead, white makes an otherwise reasonable move. He castles, gets his king to safety, but now black with correct play can escape, but he doesn't, and he plays bishop h5. Now white has the chance to do exactly what I showed, and he didn't. Anyway, comes from not analyzing your games. Okay, these are simple tactics to see. And now white goes back where he started. And now he finds this move. But you see, there's one thing wrong with white's game here. This knight doesn't have an escape route. Okay, it doesn't. So Black can provide a little pressure here. Black chooses knight d8, but look at rook e8. Look at that move. What does white do here? The only move I can find is d4, and the point of d4 is after queen takes, I'm gonna fork you, okay? But black can just take this, and if take, let's see, you need to get the knight out of there. And black is in the thick of this game. They both have 6 pawns. The black king isn't ideally posted, but he's reasonably safe for the moment. there are some open lines pointed towards the white king. You know, diagonal here, file a diagonal in a file. Black's got some chances here. The way he played it, he ended up with no chance. And again, these moves can be found just by analyzing and recognizing a trapped man motive. If your opponent's piece is deep in your camp, or you put a piece deep in your opponent's camp, make sure it has a way out or not. Find out. See that knight's in trouble. He doesn't have an exit unless you create one like I did, and that happened with the tactic. Okay, so knight d8, and now white happily relieves the pressure and tries to trap the bishop, and slowly but surely the black game just starts going downhill. Get rid of that knight before it can do any damage to the king, and hey, free pawn. Another free pawn. And black does what he can to try to attack, but one big problem for black in this line is his king is caught in the center, and the center is opening up. This king is not going to be long for this world. See, check, and block the check, free rook, bang, okay? Free pawn, and now comes a check, and after this check, black must give up his queen, and the rest is pretty elementary. And white to play has mate on the move. Very nice finish. Anyway, hopefully there's something in there you can learn, particularly those that are watching. You know, you've got to look up these openings. You've got to look them up. You've got to analyze your games. With correct play, black could have, the loser could have gotten the better position in the first game, and given white fits in this game after white misplayed his advantage. Okay? So thanks so much for your time. Take care.